Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this session. My name is Seah, and I'm an assistant professor of law at the College of Integrative Studies. I'm going to spend about 40 minutes to talk about the programs that this new school has to offer to you. But before I do that, I would like to invite all of you to do a very short poll about your motivations for those who are students, and I see a large number of parents and guardians as well. So we have, based on the very small sample size here, a number who are undecided on the degree that you want to study, and it does not necessarily have to be this university itself, but that's the point I'm trying to make. There are some of you who already know the degree that you want to study. Excellent. I also have a point to make and to explain how our program may have something to offer you. There were some people who appeared to have suggested, I don't just know what I want to study, but I know which job I want to do. I also have something to say about that based on the programs that we can offer in this school. Whether you have decided on a degree, undecided on what to study, or you know which job you want to go to, I have a takeaway for this session. And that is, you should start with the end point. Not your university degree, but what is the job you visualize, envisage you want to go into? I make the assumption most of us want to go to university to become gainfully employed. And that's the basis of my presentation today. And the takeaway I have for you, everyone, is I want you to think about what you chose just now and think about the end point, not graduation. Beyond graduation, how will you create a compelling narrative, a pitch to the employer that you're interested in applying to? It's very important. So you don't start planning your pitch halfway through your studies. You start thinking now, today. You might think it's too early, but as I try to explain to you, there are some good reasons why you should start thinking about it now. For those of us who have not even decided on what to study, if you take this mental model, this visualization, it actually helps you to ask yourself more precisely, what is it that you need to study to build up a compelling, coherent narrative for your 4 years at university? I'm going to suggest to you that at SMU, we can help you achieve this compelling pitch, my takeaway, in 3 ways. The first one relates to the brand of SMU. So I don't know what perception you have about SMU. Don't think too much about it. So just think of one word that you have in mind that describes your perception of an SMU graduate. Okay, so you can see here from a very small sample size here, some consensus about the confidence of the SMU graduate. And this generally approximates to how employers, both in Singapore and outside Singapore, regard SMU graduates. There is a perception that our graduates here tend to be more eloquent, more articulate, very practical when you ask them a question to a problem. So this particular confidence, the eloquence, the modernity of the university is one of the things that we can offer you at SMU. This is the first point I was trying to make. The second aspect is the program I'm going to talk about very shortly. I think some of you are aware that this is a new school. Our degree is new. We don't have graduates yet. So in your mind, you're correct to be skeptical. It's an unknown quantity. What if employers find that this is not useful? Are you disadvantaged if you come to this program? One of the ways I ask you to think about instead is that with the branding of SMU graduates, you will graduate with an SMU degree. But because this is a new degree, if you do well, actually what's important here is that you spark the curiosity of your potential employer that you're thinking about. Because if you're wondering, SMU degree, I know what this stands for, but what exactly is this degree about? This is the basis for you to build your pitch, your compelling story. The third thing that we can offer you at CIS, the College of Integrative Studies, is a very individualized pathway, which I'll explain in some detail very shortly. But we have 3 pathways, and they give our students in this college considerable freedom, and that manifests itself in what we call an individualized major, and then something called the individualized second major, and finally something called deferred declaration of degree, which I'll talk about in a moment. We call it D3 at SMU. So there are 3 ways we will help you to achieve the takeaway And that is, how do you land at the final point? Not university, after university. I don't know if anyone has followed this news last year in June. I'm going to use this as a case study to illustrate how SMU and the CIS we try to achieve your learning. Now, in this particular case, one company has the artificial intelligence technology right now to collect voices. So it could be a voice that maybe you have used on LinkedIn or on Instagram, and repurpose the voice for other purposes. In this case, this particular person may have passed on, and you're trying to overcome bereavement, and this particular company claims that its product, Alexa, a virtual assistant, is able to read a story to remind you of this person. This is a very dynamic space, artificial intelligence. Just last month, in January, another company has announced it can do even better. Right now, they are claiming that technology does not only convert voices, but it can create different tonalities. So I've spoken for about 5 minutes now. It can register and change my voice into Daniel Seah as being very excited, or very melancholic, or very anxious. So I would like to play a very short video to show you the extent of this product and how I can use this case study to show how we do learning at CIS.
One thing that surprised me the most about Alexa is the companionship relationship we have with it. In this companionship role, human attributes of empathy and affect are key for building trust. These attributes have become even more important in these times of the ongoing pandemic, when so many of us have lost someone we love. While AI can't eliminate that pain of loss, it can definitely make their memories last. Let's take a look on one of the new capabilities we are working on, which enables lasting personal relationships.
Alexa, can Grandma finish reading me The Wizard of Oz?
Okay. But how about my courage? Asked the lion anxiously. You have plenty of courage, I am sure, answered Oz. All you need is confidence in yourself.
As you saw in this experience, instead of Alexa's voice reading the book, it's the kid's grandma's voice. This required invention where we had to learn to produce a high-quality voice with less than a minute of recording versus hours of recording in a studio. The way we made it happen is by framing the problem as a voice conversion task and not a speech generation task. We are unquestionably living in the golden era of AI, where our dreams and science fiction are becoming a reality. I'm optimistic that ambient intelligence enabled through advances in generalizable AI will enrich daily lives of everyone everywhere. Thank you.
So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is to draw your attention to this product that this particular company is trying to produce for profit. And I would like to use this as a case study to demonstrate how we conduct learning that might help you make that pitch for a career in any job you want. Let's imagine here that this company does sell a virtual assistant for profit, and it uses this particular artificial intelligence technology called a natural language processing. What that just means is that we have the ability to interact between computers and also humans. Now, the company obviously is the employer. I ask you to imagine right now that you are, in fact, a computer science graduate, entry-level computer science graduate, and you're interested in applying and working for this particular company that sells a virtual assistant. Now, for entry-level graduates, because there is a lack of professional experience, the requirements at the entry level will usually be competency-based. What that means is that the employer is looking at your potential and the claims of the skills that you claim you have in your degree. So the competency-based interviews will always usually involve some questions during the interview. Can you propose new AI models to improve our product, for example? The fact that you are being shortlisted is good news. It means that the employer, the human resource, recognizes that at the minimum level, you have the competency, because this is a hard requirement based on your degree. But in this particular age that we live in right now, once you're shortlisted, It implies that all candidates have somewhat the same level of competency as you do. So how do you stand out? You can no longer claim that your degree in computer science is the best because other people who are shortlisted have somewhat the same competency as you do. Your advantage is being normalized in this perspective. So the point I'm trying to drive at is, what is your value add? And this is something you need to start thinking about today for the point after graduation. And this is the point as well where I want to talk about how at the College of Integrative Studies, we try to prepare our graduates that way, the value add. I'm very sure that all of you have heard of the word interdisciplinary for a while now. It's become a buzzword. So schools at different levels use the word interdisciplinarity. Universities use the word interdisciplinary studies. So what exactly does it mean? And it's very important that I try to explain how we try to achieve this at SMU and in my college, the CIS. At CIS, we call it Integrative Studies. So please bear with me. This is not just a word change, but we chose the word integrative very carefully to demonstrate our teaching approach at CIS. Now, our teaching approach is represented by the pi symbol that you see here. At CIS, if you come in, we will ensure, strongly encourage that you must develop a core competency. This is represented by the horizontal beam. In other words, you must graduate with a core competency. So in this case, if you allow me, I want to use the example of computer science. That is your core competency. But we suggest that just a core competency in computer science, as an example, is insufficient. So we suggest, as part of integrative studies, that you strengthen your value add with the vertical beams. At CIS, we recommend no more than 2 skill sets which are value add. In other words, we suggest 1 more, but if you can do it, just 2 more is enough for a 4-year program. So for example, the vertical beam could be law. You specialize in comm science, but you can take courses related to privacy and data protection. You must be wondering, why is this relevant? At the interview for comm science, as I suggested, just because you can do programming does not mean you have any value add. Every candidate can do that. But if you're able to explain that for AI models to be successful, for your product to sell well, you need a good access to database and diverse database. But in acquiring these databases, you must understand there are some privacy and data protection legal issues. If you're able to talk about that during your interview, that's a value add next to someone else who doesn't know anything about it. If you have the capacity and intellectual motivation, we can recommend 1 more vertical beam, another value add, maybe history. Now you might be wondering, why should a computer scientist know anything about history? But history gives you the intellectual ability to look at this company's past. Maybe this company has failed in selling certain type of products in the past. The study of history gives you the intellectual tool to explain precisely to a potential employer that this particular product you're selling may be aligned with your previous success or your previous failures. Maybe you want to think about that. The company may not agree with the analysis, but the fact you're able to have this conversation with them is a value add, I suggest. Now, this kind of study mode is demonstrated in our flagship program that we call Individualized Major. It's called Individualized Major for a reason. I'm just giving you examples of what your core competency can be and what are the 2 vertical value add. You can mix them up in any way you think works for you to make that compelling pitch at the end of 4 years. Let me give you one more example. So to stay with the example of Alexa, the virtual assistant, we have another student right now who is going for an interview with the same company, but different core competency. Let me use one of the most popular programs at SMU, the Bachelor of Business Management, the BBM program. Let's imagine you're one of those who polled just now on Poll EV. You already know which degree you're interested in. Let's imagine you are interested in a BBM program. CIS also offers you something here to give you the value add. How? So obviously, in this interview, let's imagine your employer asks you, what are some of the best marketing techniques or approaches that our company can use? What do you recommend? Now, you clearly have domain expertise because you spent 4 years studying for this degree. But if you have another vertical beam, I'm using law again as an example because I firmly, sincerely believe legal literacy is important for all of us, whether you are a lawyer or not. No more than financial literacy is important in our lives. You don't have to be a banker to have financial literacy. You need legal literacy to live a rewarding life. So for legal literacy here, again, you may be talking about marketing to your employer, but if you can also explain to your employer the way the success of our product will also depend on how we're able to continually access the database. If you've been following the generative AI news in the last few months, actually for generative AI, one of the biggest issues right now is the possible infringement of intellectual property, copyright infringements in particular. If you have some domain knowledge in this field, I suggest respectfully, it's a value add during your interview. Again, if you have the intellectual capacity, maybe you want to do a very basic introductory programming module. You are a business student, but if you can understand and do a little bit of programming, you'll be able to explain how marketing works in a more involved, convincing manner. Now, this particular mode works for students who have already decided, I'm not interested in what CIS offers, but I'm interested in taking value-add courses. Now, we have something called the Individualized second major. At SMU, if you come in whichever school you go to, you have a guaranteed second major. This happens to all schools. So you'll be asking, what is it that CIS offers that's different from the guaranteed second major? Other schools call it slightly different, but the difference here is the individualized component. You will decide what exactly you want to add to supplement your core degree, your first major. Now, although there's a high degree of freedom and individualization, it does not mean you are left on your own. So this is how we try to mentor you and also to guide you across the 4 years. Whichever program you choose, whether it's the individualized major or the individualized second major. So we have a group of faculty members, my colleagues and I have different skill sets, and we will guide you personally to tell you your combination ABC may not work so well, maybe consider D or F, because employers don't really want to see the combination. So you have a choice, but we guide you. We are very aware of that. So we have a range of skill sets here. We have computer scientists, for sure. We have economists, and we have political scientists. My dean, Professor Lim, is a political scientist by training. We have historians, and they specialize in Southeast Asian studies or in environmental history. We have a few geographers who specialize in urban studies, right? And then we have colleagues like Terry, who has taken degrees in economics and something else. So they really have a very diverse range of skills. We even have colleagues who specialize in English literature, philosophy, and even religious studies. And finally, of course, we have lawyers, because our lawyers act like scavengers. We tend to make ourselves relevant in any domain, so you can never do without them. But this is the range of skill, and is to assure our students that you will be mentored very carefully. The other advantage in which we can give you one-to-one is the size of my school. We expect to take in 100 students. This is the first batch, but we only expect 50 students who will do the individualized major. And for the individualized second major, and we have 2 students here, we expect a total of just 20 students. So it's very selective and small, and this allows us to give you a very careful face-to-face mentoring over the duration of your program. Let me move on to the last program that we have at CIS. And you can imagine the 2 examples I've just illustrated with domain expertise in comp science or business management. I stress it's just an example. It can be anything else that SMU offers. And these are possibilities of how you want to mix your strength. This is very good for any of you who are still undecided on the degree you want to take. And there was about 60% of you just now, based on poll EV. This program we have is called the Deferred Declaration of Degree. It's a D3 program. And in your first year, you apply for this program, you can take a sample of modules that SMU can offer you. Of course, with guidance again. Now, you might be wondering, what if after 12 months, I hate this program, I don't want it anymore? Then what happens? So at the start of this application process for D3, in a very Singaporean way, we built an insurance mechanism into the application process. We have two assurances for you at the start of your application. Let's imagine you're not decided, you go for D3. You have to state your reserve spots as your second and your third choices. In other words, after 12 months at SMU for D3, if you don't like the program for any reason, you can go back to your second choice, maybe it's Comp Science, or perhaps you can go to your next choice, which is a third choice, Business Management. Practically, because of the small size of the school, during your first year for D3, the faculty and the school will also monitor your progress. If we feel that you don't seem to be moving so well in this, then we will suggest you take certain modules which are more aligned with Comp Science so that you can move smoothly second year into Comp Science. You will still be able to graduate within 4 years. So this program, I suggest, is a very good program for those of you who have not decided, but you want to give yourself the privilege of time, and CIS gives you the pathway. I see a few guardians and parents here. So if you recall your own times in school, I suggest, like me, there were very few choices. I wish I had more choices. But today, you have many choices, perhaps too many. But I suggest respectfully, there's a reason why you need more choices, but the choices you make must be strategic ones. Life is complex. The problems require more complex solutions. We expect more from our graduates. You cannot just claim to have one competency. It no longer makes you stand out to the extent that you want to be gainfully employed. So as I suggested at the very start of my presentation, how do we help you create this compelling pitch? I suggested at SMU we do it in three ways. It's the brand recognition of the SMU degree, it's the newness, the curiosity of this particular degree at CIS that we give you, and finally, it's the individualized pathways that I've talked about. It's very important I stress that we give you a lot of autonomy to chart your own job narrative that starts from day one at university. So if you're someone who enjoys this excitement of freedom and also the intellectual privilege of making choices, we really want to see you at CIS. So on that note, I want to end this presentation and we'll move into Q&A. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.